Good Friday morning. We are streaming live. Streaming live. Streaming live. Happy Friday. It is. Can't tell if we're live on LinkedIn yet. Let me see. Back it up. Back it up. Back it up. Okay, there we go. We are live on LinkedIn. Also, good morning. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025. We are on the back side of February, and hopefully at the tail end of the last cold snap in the winter of 2025, at least for Austinites. My name is Keith. I broadcast live Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I don't play games. I don't say obnoxious things and shout to the rooftops. I just kind of hang out with folks who are putting out job applications, who want to work in tech, who do work in tech, who've been laid off, and are looking for opportunities. And they're getting up early. They're having a caffeinated beverage. They're getting those job applications out first thing in the morning. They want to get at the top of the stack. They want to increase their chances of getting a new job, getting a first job in tech. And I created this stream just for that reason, just to be a place to hang out. The reason why I created it also is because I run what has been a coding boot camp in Austin, Texas, and have for the last several years. And our students come through our program, and they are looking for often their first job in tech. And I see firsthand how challenging that is today. It's always been challenging, and last summer was even worse than it is now. But it, the people who are able to stick with it, the people who are able to be consistent, the people who are able to keep their mind in the game and focused on the outcome, which is doing everything that it takes to get that first job, are the ones that succeed, and the ones that half-heartedly, get out a couple of applications every week. Or maybe they do not gonna. Maybe it's a little too chilly today. I'm gonna stay in bed. I'm not gonna get up and do it. They're gonna struggle. It's gonna take longer. We got a story in the news today about how long it takes people to find jobs, and 22%, I think, is what it said, of the people looking for jobs takes them over a year, and that's a horrible number. Year without work, meaningful employment. We live in a world where there's lots of opportunities to bring some cash in, but it's not a career out of those jobs. We'll talk about that again today in the news also. But if you want a career, if you want to become an expert in something, if you want to do meaningful work that moves the needle for the businesses that you work for, and as a result are rewarded for that, it's just more challenging. Just more challenging. Again, not more than it ever was, but challenging nonetheless. I do two primary things on the chat while you guys are putting out those applications. I check the job trends, and then I look at the news in tech and the greater business world to sort of give a sense of what the industry is like today and where it's going in the future. And it's been a rough couple of weeks. I will say rough few weeks, the new administration has come in and they're doing a lot of things to shake stuff up. They're creating a lot of uncertainty. And markets and business generally feel unmoored and uncomfortable when there's uncertainty. I was just chatting over text with a friend of mine who I used to work with at Dell. He was laid off a few weeks ago. It's unrelated to what all the Doge stuff that's going on right now, but he did have a job working for the government. And, those things happen. I worked for a defense contractor for 2 years, and, man, it was great. Had a great job, had a great team, had a great experience. And then the contract started drying up. They were not landing all the contracts. And we started to go through the layoffs. We had one round layoff. I made the cut. They made another round layoff. I made the cut again. The third round, not so lucky. Not so lucky. These things happen. There is a cyclical nature, especially to government work, contractor work. But things are changing over there for sure, fast and furious, and nobody knows what's happening in terms of the dust settling over there, because they are not done. Those Doge folks are showing up to work every day and causing chaos and confusion and uncertainty and breaking things, and then trying to fix them again, and all kinds of stuff is going on there. In Austin, Texas, where I reside, Elon's been about a bit of a fixture. He moved all of his companies to Texas, and he's often in and around the Austin area. So we've been host to him for a while, but not lately. He's been hanging out in Washington D.C. All right, let's get into the job numbers. If you have any questions about working in tech, about getting a job in tech, about what makes a good resume, what should I put on my portfolio or not put in my portfolio, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm happy to take a look at anything specific, talk, give you advice. I've been doing this for quite a while. I've been a professional developer for over 30 years. And working in this particular job for 3.5, close to 4 years, helping people get into the industry. So I've coached a lot of people getting ready for their first interviews. I've helped them get their resumes straight, and I'm happy to chat about all that stuff. But failing all that, I got the backup plan, which is to go over these numbers and to check out the news. So I'm going to go ahead. But again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat, and I will address them as they come. So I have been for over 300 days, about 330 days, going to Indeed.com every morning and just doing a job search and writing those numbers down, which build these graphs right here. These 3 graphs show entry-level positions of JavaScript jobs being posted on Indeed in the last 24 hours. Now, these numbers are also averaged out over a week, just to get rid of the kind of noisy thing, with our goal being to find trends in the job market. Which way are they going? 6 months ago, all of these lines were heading down and to the right. We've had a good change in that over the fall and into the holiday season, post-election. We had, until the last couple of weeks, both of these up and to the right. A slight downtrend in the 1 year. So we got 1 week, 6 months, and 1 year to get a sense of the trends. Indeed lists about 20% of all the job postings that are out there on their website. So that is statistically significant in terms of being able to figure out what trend lines are. And what we see from this data is the last week, again, it's been a bit of a dip. And I think things will go up, things will go down. There's always some variation. from week to week. So it's better to kind of get a larger view, and that larger view is we are just trending better. Like in the summer of last year and heading into the fall, there were probably 20% less job postings than there are today. So, that in and of itself is good news. But I was really expecting this trend to keep going up. All this concern about what's going on with the government and inflation and jobs reports and all that stuff is, I feel like, taking its toll. That, and we've had a bit of a rough January in terms of weather. Fires in Southern California. A lot of businesses lost their businesses in those fires. It's going to take some time for them to get back on their feet. Not a huge effect, probably, but it all contributes. I've also sliced and diced since the beginning of the year a little more granularity in this data. So this first chart here, since the first of the year, shows all of the JavaScript postings, both in the office, which is the blue line, and remote, which is the red line. Again, since the first of the year, up and to the right, is what we've been seeing, a lot of that. But you can absolutely see that it is plateaued. It is flattened out. We came out of the gate like a rocket. And, man, I was really, really hoping that trend would continue, but it has stayed pretty flat. This is entry level, mid level, and senior level. The red line is the mid level. Senior level is in yellow, and the entry level is in blue. And these are remote jobs. There are far fewer of the remote jobs, than in person. Oh, man. Sorry. And that's always been the case. But it does feel like that gap has been widening. Again, when we looked at these numbers previously, they were a lot closer together. There's, it's all about speculation, but my guess is through all these layoffs, we had a lot of senior developers hit the job market and or voluntarily take layoffs and severance and are out looking for another job. And there just aren't as many senior roles, or companies can say, hey, why don't we post this as a mid-level role, and if there's a desperate senior out there who really needs a job, maybe we can get a bargain for them. So we've really seen that gap widen, which is interesting. Which also means that, again, if you're an entry-level person, if they're looking for 5 years experience, you're going to opt out of putting that job posting in there. But in this day and age, our goal is just to secure a position. So keep your options open. Keep looking for opportunities to find a way to make yourself memorable through your resume, through your portfolio, through your LinkedIn, and just hustle. We in Austin have South by Southwest coming up next month in about 3 weeks. That's an opportunity to get out to a lot of different events and network. And I'm creating an app, which I'll be probably talking a lot more about starting next Monday, to help people stay on top of all the events that are going on that are not sponsored by South by Southwest, that are not badge entry events, but are free events that are going on beside it. So I'm creating this app to help people manage all the things. There's so far I've found about 150 different events that are going on during South by Southwest that are free and in the area. I've only got about 50 of them loaded into the app right now. It's a manual process, so I've been hustling on that, working hard to try and make some progress there. And as soon as I get that sort of ironed out, hopefully this weekend, I'm going to start pushing that. And talking about maybe meeting up with some people. If you're going to be in town, if you are in town, I will be all over the place. So I'll be probably promoting my where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be, in case you guys are in the area and want to connect. Always looking to grow my network. I do currently have a job, but you never know. Could find myself out of work. You know, before you know it, and then I'd be out there hustling myself. So, oftentimes, especially when we get a job, we're all in on that job. We're focused on that job, and keeping our resume up, keeping our portfolio fresh, keeping our network growing is challenging because we're all in. We want to do a good job. We want to provide them the best value for our employers, so they'll keep us around. Completely understandable, but if you've worked at a place for 3-5 years and you get laid off, you are starting from scratch, and it feels like a lot more challenging and daunting of a task. So it's important to stay on top of your LinkedIn, stay connecting to people, get out to meetups, even if again you have a job. Use meetups as a way to continue to grow as a developer. There are AI meetups around your town, if it's of any size. If you haven't done a lot of AI programming or played with enough of the AI tools, get out of the house, meet some new people, learn some new tech, connect with people on LinkedIn, grow your network, right? We want to use every angle that's out there. All right. Again, I use Indeed as a source for all of my data because you can filter all this stuff out and get a lot more granular about the process. And I'm on LinkedIn every day, multiple times a day, reaching out to people. But they also have a nice little news feed here that always has a few good stories, and there were a couple today. Let's hit those. LinkedIn also has a job board, of course you know that, and they do surveys, and I think quarterly they put out a survey, several surveys on different things. This one's about how hard it's taking to land a new role. There are a couple of stories out of that based on the data they've collected. It's all self-reported, of course. That's how these kind of surveys work, but they surveyed 6,197 U.S. professionals between December of last year and January of this year. So it's relatively fresh information, and again, 6,000. You always have to look for kind of where the data might be skewed. If somebody does have a job, they're probably not even paying attention and finding the survey, or they did find it and they don't have time to fill out a survey because they got a job. So how might that skew the data? We'll see. But it says 53% of Americans actively looking for a new job have been on the hunt for 6 months or longer, according to the findings of LinkedIn's latest workforce confidence survey. What's more, 1 in 3, 34% have been searching for a job at least a year, if not longer. Again, you know, 6 months, I absolutely get, right? So we always have to slice and dice this information. If you're trying to break into tech, if you've got a resume that doesn't have any experience in tech, and you're out there hustling, trying to get that first break, it's going to be harder. You're going to have a lot of competition, especially with all these layoffs. You're going to have a lot of challenges, even getting through those first filters, because you're not going to have the keywords that they're looking for. You're not going to have a portfolio full of work that you've done for large, for large and small clientele corporations. It is more challenging. It's not impossible. I have students who come through our program, who, do get those jobs, but they're working their network. They're really hustling. They're continuing to build more challenging portfolio pieces that catch people's eyes. These are the kind of things that you need to focus on when you're trying to break into. And also, if you're trying to break into tech and you've got 5 years in another industry, 10 years in another industry, actively seek out those companies that are in those industries that need programmers, right? So if you've worked in health tech as a nurse and you learned to program, going to a company whose job it is to create software and hardware with code in it that that nurses use, again, they can hire lots of programmers who know all the algorithms, but they don't know anything about the job. They don't know anything about what makes a good product for a nurse or for a restaurant manager or for a fireman or whatever it is, right? So we want to look for opportunities for us to stand out. I had a student last year who was an adjunct instructor at a college teaching Arabic. And it paid okay, but he wasn't getting as many hours as he would like. He was looking for other opportunities. He took the course. He learned how to program. And, he ended up getting snapped up and hired pretty quickly, actually, because he could speak Arabic. Because the company that hired him was looking to grow into Arabic-speaking countries. And again, like, they can teach somebody who speaks Arabic how to code a lot faster than they can teach somebody who knows how to code Arabic. Institutional knowledge that you developed over time can be valuable if you use it correctly. Again, if I show my resume to a company and it doesn't have a whole lot of programming experience, but it's got a lot of experience in the industry that that the company is working, that is the leg up. That is what makes you stand out. Oh, remember that guy who was a restaurant manager for 10 years and we build software for restaurant managers? Let's bring him on, right? Let's take a chance because he's got a perspective that could be, very additive to this process. He's not just some 22-year-old who's coming out of college who knows all the algorithms, but didn't even have a job working food service, much less managing a restaurant, right? So we're always looking for those opportunities. Now, if you have got 3 years experience, 5 years experience, 10 years experience, and you find yourself out of work, and you're a year into the job search, man, you gotta really look at what the information you're putting out. If you got experience, you should be, reaching out to recruiters. Recruiters will be reaching out to you, and you should be using those and lining up interviews. Now, it still may take 6 months. The process takes time. Once you get out there and start putting your information out there, yeah, it'll take you 2 weeks to a month to even get all of your information together, update your portfolio, maybe get a portfolio site together, get your resume checked out, updated. All that stuff takes a little time, right? Like getting on the job boards, just getting all of your information in the job boards could take you, time. Building that habit again of getting up in the morning, hustling to be consistent. There's a month right there of just getting that stuff out. Reaching out to recruiters, letting your network know that you're in the job. Like, there's all these things that individually might not take very long, but in the collective, to kind of find your rhythm, get it all going, and iterating, getting feedback on your resume, improving your resume, maybe spending a little extra time that you have, the extra time that you have, again, making a new portfolio piece that's going to really catch somebody's eye. All that stuff takes time. And then you start getting, requests for interviews. All right, that's good. The first one, you're all tight. Oh my gosh, I need this job. I can't believe I've been laid off. What does that say about me as a person? Does that mean I don't have any value? Like, all these questions, things that pop up into our heads when we're in that situation. I've been through it many times over my career. It is not fun. There's nothing fun about it. But the important thing to understand is you are an unemployed programmer. You are an unemployed data scientist. You are an unemployed, back-end developer. All these things, are just, how do you get your head in the right space to be consistent and focused and keep moving forward, right? So, again, if you've got 3 years experience, 5 years experience, a decade plus work experience, and you're a year into the job search, you got to really take a serious look at what you're doing. You're not being very efficient. You're not being very effective. There are jobs over there. We see new job postings every day. In a year, you could teach yourself in the last year, you could teach yourself how to build AI models, and those jobs are more in demand, right? Like, you could be actively learning new skills that are in demand and shifting the focus of your career. Maybe you've been a PHP developer for the last 15 years because you worked at a company and they were on a PHP platform. PHP, not as sexy, not nearly as many jobs as there are. But this is the way that tech works, right? It changes, it grows. It constantly is evolving. And so we need to evolve with it. So, if you've got lots of experience and you're a year into the job search, you really need to be looking at, where are the jobs right now? What do you need? What's the shortest path for you to get the skills that will allow you to apply for these new jobs? And just, go to school. Go to school. Of course, I run a school, so I am biased. But being in this industry for over 30 years, the one thing that I know is I need to keep learning. I absolutely need to keep abreast of where things are going. I don't need to chase every new framework that's out there, but I need to be aware of those frameworks. I need to have conversations about them. I need to watch YouTube videos about them. Because one day my employer might say, hey, you need to learn this. Or a client might say, we're adding this feature. Have you had any experience with it? Nope, but I'm familiar with it. It's kind of like this other thing that I use all the time. Those are the things that we want to have in these conversations, right? So, on its face, that doesn't look great. When you dig a little deeper, I'd be very curious to understand kind of how those numbers break out based on your experience, how much experience you've had. Another one based on that: active job seekers in the U.S. feeling less confident about their chances of finding or keeping a job these days, according to the latest findings in LinkedIn's workforce survey. Among employed and unemployed job seekers, confidence to get or keep a job is at plus 15, scored on a scale from negative 100 to plus 100, near the lowest it's been since the survey began during the pandemic. In April of 2020, confidence among active job seekers was at a low plus 9. Confidence usually spikes at the start of January thanks to New Year's optimism, but last month it was plus 20 among active job seekers, already down 11 points year over year from the 31. That's true, but again, like if you looked at December year over year, those numbers look good. Again, coming out of the election, there was a bit of a Trump bump. The new administration was sending signals to business that things are going to be more business friendly, tax friendly, regulation friendly, M&A friendly. There was hints that the interest rate was going to go down. All of that stuff seemed to be indicators that businesses was going to have a good relationship with this administration, and as a result, be better, right? And between that period of the election happening and being sworn in as president of the United States, there was a lot of optimism as numbers were up. But as soon as the new president came in and started signing executive actions, now we're in this level of kind of uncertainty and chaos that seems to follow that administration. It was there in the first time of his administration, and it's back again, right? So, some things to temper the information on, and then the other thing too is like they started tracking this at a time during the pandemic where it was just all layoffs across the board because the pandemic had shut down so many companies, so many businesses, and if you couldn't convert to working from home, a lot of people were laid off, a lot of people were out of work. And of course, this is not a lot of tech in here, but this is not probably very representative of programmers, because programmers were able to convert to work from home pretty easily. But then we saw the spike. Where did the spike come from? The spike came from an influx of a lot of money that the government was just doling out to companies, to free money to companies to keep them in business. And, they were not very efficient with how they doled that money out. They gave a bunch of money to companies that didn't need it. And what did that the company was like, hey, there's free money, let's go get it. Great. But it came with some strings. You had to either hire people or keep people on using that money. And so if they didn't need, the money to keep people on, they went on a hiring spree. And we saw this in tech. A lot of companies went hiring. And I saw this with our students. It was a lot easier during this period from late 2020 to, the beginning of 2022, where it was a lot easier for our students to get jobs. And then it started to turn. And right around here is when I started tracking the numbers, 900 days ago, because I started to see like, it feels like there's less job postings now than there were. It feels like our students are taking a little bit longer to get jobs. Let me go take a look at this. And so I started tracking that information, right? So some of this is exuberance and a market that's propped up by a bunch of printing of money. So this is unrealistic, just like the housing market was crazy at that time also, because a bunch of people who didn't need the money. My wife and I both kept our jobs during the pandemic. We were both able to convert to working from home, and we still had a salary. We were doing fine, but we still got money from the government. We got money from the government. And a lot of people who didn't need that money to stay afloat got a bunch of cash, an infusion of cash, and they spent it. They spent it on a lot of different things, including upgrading their houses or improving the value of their house by doing renovations and that kind of stuff. So home prices were inflated. Now they're starting to come back down again. This is the market, when you put your thumb on the scale, does irrational things. And we're sort of in a place. We are lower than we were pre-pandemic. If they started tracking this back in 2019, we'd see these numbers up a little bit higher. probably in the mid 20s. So the 40s was probably just artificially inflated. Down here around 15 is lower than it should be due to what's going on right now. Uh, but but it is an indicator of kind of where things are. And with all these layoffs, they're happening across the board, and now with a whole bunch of government layoffs, we'll look at a story about that today. Uh, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market space. Welcome, welcome to the new reality. DeepSeek vows to share more code. DeepSeek's been taking it on the chin lately, man. Governments are making it, outlawing it. A lot of concern about the Chinese startup and the safety of running that model. So, they had open sourced a big chunk of their code and put out a white paper just talking about some of the things that they did to create it. But because they've been so roundly trounced, when you get in the front of the pack, you got a big target on your back. Like, that is just the way the world works, right? And they leapfrogged in front of OpenAI and a bunch of other things, and like, oh man, as soon as you do that, all these companies have been raising billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, who seemingly got kneecapped by this open source company. Man, they're going to be gunning for you, and they have a lot of influence because they got a lot of cash. So, knives were out the following day, and now we're starting to see that come to affect what's going on. So they're out there hustling to try to say, hey, we're not stealing all your information, we're not giving it to the Chinese government, we swear. Of course, it's open source. You can download it and run it locally. You can run it on a local machine that does not have a connection to the internet, so you can check to see, is there any data being passed in and out or attempted to be passed in and out, if you've got a certain amount of technical ability. And I haven't heard anything about that, but certainly the online version of it that does happen on Chinese servers, yeah, they're recording all that stuff, so it's interesting. What else we got? Amazon pays $1 billion for the James Bond franchise. This is not directly about jobs or tech per se, but it is interesting that Amazon, which on the backs of creating the largest e-commerce space on the planet, decided to get into streaming and at first they were essentially just giving that away with Prime as a perk for Prime, and I was already paying for Prime, so let me check out what's on this Amazon thing. And the offerings got bigger and stronger. They did a good job of being a conduit to easily add and remove channels, so you could kind of churn. You could sign up for Cinemax or HBO or something like that, watch a bunch of stuff, and then bounce from it really easily and add another one, and kind of do that merry-go-round of trying to keep your costs low in terms of streaming, but keep your variety high. They've done a lot of things right, but this is an interesting one. Like, that is a huge deal. My whole life, I've been hearing about the Broccoli family and their vice-like grip over the franchise, and they take their time, and they are very opinionated about the franchise, about what it is, what it should be, and I don't expect that to be the case with Amazon. I think Amazon's going to be in the Disney model, buying an IP, licensing an IP, and then just cranking out product, because they don't have the same sort of, they're in it to make money. So they don't have the same sort of approach to the IP as the Broccoli family. So it's shocking to me that the Broccolis gave up control. But I don't know. I think in general, we're probably better for it. We'll probably see more 007 movies. We'll see more interesting choices about 007, who plays him, or her. And then it'll get watered down just like Star Wars and every other piece of IP that's owned by somebody who didn't create it. That's the way the world works. But, we probably have a pretty good run. So looking forward to that. Okay, comprehensive look at Doge's firings and layoffs so far. This was posted 2 days ago, or updated 2 days ago. 220,000 federal employees. That number's probably higher now, just because of the way things have been working. Department of Veterans Affairs, Education Department, Energy Department. So a couple of those have made the news because of their heavy-handed approach to layoffs. DHS and Health and Human Services, Internal Revenue Service. This one's just crazy. It's the middle of tax season. The taxes are how we fund the government. If you want to, cut out waste and abuse, and you want more money in the coffers, you don't cut out the IRS agents who are collecting the taxes. You just don't do that. I'm not sure what's going on there. National Park Service, 1,000 newly hired National Park Service employees who maintain and clean the parks. Clearly not a huge number, and not not going to save us a bunch of money, but B, that's, it's not even a rounding error. That's just not, it's a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of anybody's budget. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing that? Administration has ordered the agency created after the 2008 financial crisis, effectively shutting it down. This one, again, is, the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And this agency was a response to an unregulated industry, nearly crashing the economy. And those safeguards that were put in place after that, led to a lot of good things that help consumers. Again, for the people. That's what government exists. We give the power to government in a representative democracy to safeguard us when, the power is in the hands of those who want to abuse it. Right? So, shutting this down is not good news. It's just not good news for consumers. It's not good news for Americans. It's unfortunate. Agriculture Department, they're getting hit from all sides. The agricultural sector. Firing 2,000 probationary non-firefighting employees. They got to be clear about that. from the Forest Service. But we've got bird flu going on. We got an industry that oftentimes has been propped up by undocumented workers. They're being attacked on this other side. Again, staying out of the fray in terms of like whether undocumented workers should be here working legally or not. Like everybody can have that argument, but the reality is like, if they don't show up to pick the food, there's going to be an effect on that, right? Prices are going to go up. Food's going to rot in the fields. Our exports are going to suffer, and those have second order effects. This is a thing that programmers, people in tech, problem solvers, understand through experience and time, and that is in a complex system, tweaking inputs changes outputs, and oftentimes in unintended consequences, right? And the move fast and break things approach might work for a company, but doesn't work so well with the government. Lives are on the line, jobs are on the line. We live in interesting times. How are we doing on time? Speaking of 15 minutes, all right. Federal grants and loans, inspectors general. Not a lot of jobs there, but arguably important jobs. Department of Justice, State Department, lots of departments. OpenAI tops 400 million users despite DeepSeek's emergence. Again, DeepSeek took a lot of the press, and there was definitely some looky-loos who are deep in the weeds about AI and what's going on in that space, but that is not the majority of people. My in-laws, my extended family member who don't work in tech, like they're just now trying to find ways to kind of use AI in their daily lives. They're slow adopters. Maybe they work in industries that aren't particularly tech savvy. They're just now starting to find the value of this stuff. So those 400 active users, weekly active users, it's going to increase. There's, 4.5 billion people on the planet. There's still lots of room to grow. But all those people, they've heard of OpenAI, they've heard of ChatGPT, they have not heard of DeepSeek. I have in-laws who are work in pharmacies, who work at banks, who work as nurses. They're aware of this stuff. They're probably not using it every day like we do as in tech. And of course, if you work in tech and you're not using it every day, you need to pay attention to that too. Especially if you're in the job hunt. You should be using AI every day to help with the job hunt. 400 million weekly active users, up 33%. I am, again, continuing to pay for and use OpenAI and ChatGPT. If not daily, probably 6 days a week. But it's actually less than it was before because I was using it for coding a lot more a year ago, 6 months ago. Now, I've changed the way that I look for code information. I'll still ask ChatGPT for a syntax question or something like that, but in terms of like actually producing code that I'm going to use in projects, I don't really use it for that anymore, not directly. I'm using Claude through Cursor primarily is my tool, and Claude I also pay for. But when I'm doing any writing, when I'm doing any brainstorming, when I'm looking for a logo for a new app idea that I'm sort of exploring, I use ChatGPT for that all the time, multiple times a day. So they are going to keep. They were the first to market. They've been pretty successful at staying ahead of the pack, and they've got the name awareness, so they're not slowing down anytime soon. Doesn't mean they're profitable or going to be profitable anytime soon. No, they're not. But they're playing a high stakes game with a big payoff at the end, if they can make it to the end. Okay. We talked about this story yesterday. The Rabbit folks released this research preview of an agent that can control Android apps and devices. Again, I'm trying to use my phone as little as possible, and I work from home. I'm in this space. I've got my desktop machines all arranged in the way that I like it. It's a very small percentage of the time I'm on my phone anymore. Now, I live a very specific life. If you're a real estate agent and you're out in your car every day going to different places and responding to requests and doing a whole bunch of stuff and scheduling things, in a different job and a different set of tasks you need to do, maybe these agents will be very useful for you. I don't see a huge need for that. Like, I definitely can see a value to using agents in the browser on my desktop machine, but in Android specific, I don't know. It's not for me. Curious though. Curious about it. Xbox pushes ahead with new generative AI. Developers say nobody will want this. And they are wrong about that. Developers are wrong about that, with a big asterisk behind it. Yes, of course. The 5-star Michelin chef will look at McDonald's and go like, that's not food. Nobody will want this. Your understanding of what people will accept and be drawn to is completely lacking and out of touch, my guess is. Yes. People will want this on some level. But it doesn't mean that 4-star chefs go away, or that their value is any less. Yes, the 4-star Michelin star chef is going to make a really good living, right? But they're not going to be on every corner like McDonald's. This is the way democratization of technology works, right? Just because anybody can write a novel, and with AI, literally anybody can write a novel and put it up for sale on Amazon because it's so easy to self-publish these days. Doesn't mean that best-selling authors are going to be out of a job. It doesn't. The unique voice is going to, it's going to win out. Maybe not immediately, over time. And it just goes to, our understanding of what it means to provide value, right? If your job is you sort of phoning it in, doing the least amount of work, you should be concerned about your job. If you're out there pushing yourself to do better work, to create more original and interesting stuff, you'll be able to find a place. That wins out. It's not easy. That is not easy. But the people who can do that are going to be in a better position long term, for sure. Working in the games industry is always a bit of a pipe dream, kind of like being in a rock band or being a movie star, being a director. Like, everybody wants these jobs. There aren't very many of those jobs. The people who, succeed in those jobs tend to be people who are obsessed with it and have some creative ability and have put in the time. There are always outliers of, some wonderkin who right out of the gate does a big thing. More times than not, that's not sustained. You look at these like 30 under 30 lists 10 years later, and most of them are pretty unremarkable. You know, when they were young, they had the focus, they did an interesting thing, it just happened to catch just right. But keeping that up, once you find a little success, is more challenging to stay on top. Getting on top and staying on top are two different things. All right, we're getting down to the end of it. So I'm going to wrap it up like I do on every Friday with my cajoling, with my haranguing, with my counseling that I'm not going to be here tomorrow, but you are going to be here tomorrow. You're going to get up early. You're going to get a caffeinated beverage just like you did today, and you're going to get out there and get yourself some job listing. Get out those job post apps tomorrow. The people who take the weekend off are those people who are going to be here a year looking for a job, right? But the people who are consistent, get up every day, Saturdays and Sundays included, hustle and get their job out, getting the app in as early as possible. You can look tomorrow and filter for the last 24 hours, and you can look on Sunday and filter for the last 24 hours, and there will be new job postings. And those people that take the weekends off, they're not going to see them until Monday. And you'll already be at the top of the stack of that. So again, it sucks to look for a job. There's nothing fun about it, but you got to get your head straight. You got to figure out your priorities. You got to organize your life to optimize, to give yourself the best chance. And this is one of those ways. We're just going to get up every day, get a shower, attack those new job postings. I talk to people who have been successful getting jobs, and they're checking the job boards 2 times a day. They'll do it in the morning, they'll do it in the afternoon. Hey, new jobs were posted in the afternoon. So they're looking for the freshest ones. They want to get at the top of the stack. Right? So, hustle, hustle, hustle. It is coming up on 9 o'clock. Again, I won't be here until Monday again, but I will be back on Monday. Hopefully, we'll see some good news. We'll see a turnaround in some of these job postings. We'll see that up into the right trend that looked so good 30 days ago. We're going to continue with that. In general, I'm still very bullish on tech. Obviously, tech's not going anywhere. There's a realignment that's happening. There's external headwinds that's happening because of the economy. But never bet against tech. Just don't. Just don't do it. Okay, guys. Have a great weekend. And we will